So welcome again to our conflict lab on food activism. And our intention today is for at least some subset of those who are here, it does not have to be everyone, there may be room for all, to be part of a systemic constellation process that Alison Fornés has graciously agreed to facilitate as a way of sensing into the system that not just the food system in general, but I think the idea is, you know, our connection to it, and particularly from a perspective of activists who recognize that the industrial system that dominates food production and consumption right now on this planet is an absolute abomination. And the question then is, how do we respond being embedded in that and as change agents? And what is possible and what is necessary. And there's so many complexities to it. I was really excited, Alison, when you stepped up so we put an invitation out to a number of the different guest speakers who are offering different practices for working with conflict in this fourth week of the summit. And we had already noted in our little core team conversations with Dita and Tanya and some others, how many different pieces there were to this, and where do we start, and which one do we focus on? And what I love about this process is it really allows all of that to be present in the field, and maybe some things we aren't even aware belong there. So I don't want to say a whole lot more than that before turning it over to Alison. But that's really our context today, is to have some of us work through this process that Alison will facilitate, others who wish to play the very important role of witness. And then I think we can have some time at the end to hear from the witnesses as well. Mm-hmm. Is there any needs that you have or sort of business we need to take care of in the beginning, Alison, before I just sort of turn it over to you? The other thing is that I believe that we have at least one or two people who will offer some of their sort of personal reflections to really drop us more into the space of this conflict.
Great. Yeah, well, let's, I don't have anything personally. I'm looking forward to getting into this with you all. So let's drop into some silence together, and then I'd love to hear your reflections and help sort of find the roots and the intentions for our journey together. So I'm going to invite you to just sort of find your place in your body, wherever you are. Start to locate yourself in this moment in your chair. And I'll ring the bell to bring us into some breathing time together. I'm going to invite you to locate your body between heaven and earth, feeling your connection, anchoring in to the earth below us. in the cosmic field above us. Noticing how that comes together in your heart. I invite you to feel behind you. And feeling your parents and ancestors. Feeling all that has come before, that brings life, has passed life on to you. Invite you to feel on your left side. And on your right side. Noticing those energies. Noticing the heart sitting with you in circle. And then I invite you to feel the space that opens up in front of you. In that field of possibility and co-creation. And it's a field that we contribute to, but it's also a field that comes towards us. And I welcome you to open your eyes and come back into our circle and our intention today together. So I'd love to hear about what those of you who have some things to share about the intention for today and what you've been thinking about. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hello. I guess I'll say aloha from here in Honolulu, Hawaii, and say just a few words since I did kind of start this off months ago. It's amazing how time flies and how much the world has changed since I wrote that article in November. I'm passionate about food. Because I grew up on the healthiest possible organic food way back at the end of the last Great Depression, when people were caring and sharing, and I lived in farm community where we all took care of each other and grew food for each other. I guess my biggest concern is that it's very easy for us to identify with animals and worry about the terrible cruelty that is being perpetrated on our food animals because they have faces. And as a biologist, I'm passionate about knowing that plants are even more sentient than animals and that we torture our plants at least as badly as our animals, if not even more so, with our agricultural chemicals. And also as a biologist, I just don't like to see this division made where it's kind of like plants on one side and animals on the other. When they are all sentient beings, some of my best friends are trees. So if anybody wants to know more about the sentience of plants, I'm happy to share about that. It bothers me that Alan Savory, who's doing so much with his institute about regreening grasslands by putting animals on them, the only way to regreen grasslands that there is. And I could also go into that. So I'm for healthy food. And I love that this is about conflict resolution, because only when we're all together on these issues and build our tolerance for each other's choices of healthy diets, can we really get this going to get back to a healthy world of food. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I was wondering before I came on the call, what's the unseen thing that needs to be seen? And I feel like you brought it right here at the top. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Dita, did you have some thoughts? So we weren't, if it wasn't clear, maybe this is not, I'm thinking, an invitation to a full group conversation, rather for a few people that were part of the catalyst for this to help set the context, and then we'll have time for full group dialogue more at the end. But I could also defer to your sense of that. I did see a bunch of other hands up, but my thinking was we'd hear from a few people and then move into the process.
Maybe can I just, Elizabeth, what you said is just, yeah, you speak my heart. And I get very upset sometimes when people talk about why they are not eating animals while they are actually torturing so many plants. But I think that the conflict that I have so many conflicts with food, we will need like several summits to go through just my conflicts with it. But I just want to, what was really alive with me while we were sitting together is, I think when this started for me is my father was a farmer, and I remember when we moved to a place where he got some land. It was in the tropics, and it was just incredibly beautiful forest everywhere. And the so-called Green Revolution brought progress to us farmers back then, which ended up in the hills that were surrounding the place where we moved to, becoming basically a desert, and absolutely full of chemicals. And my father just bought into that. And so I grew up in a farmer's house, but I didn't get any organic food because we were just using chemicals and everything. And just for me, it's just layer after layer of new fashions that come that just perpetuate this abuse of the soil that is just killing us first place. And yeah, I could just go on bringing more and more conflicts, but I think that's the root of my conflict with it, seeing how the land around me was just destroyed, and then seeing the livelihood of those farmers that were supposed to then become rich or at least have a livelihood was just a lie, because we just became poorer and poorer with time. So thank you.
I guess one of the sorry.
Keep going.
One of the conclusions, but one of the points that we found together is that this is such a multi-layered conflict, and with issues that, you know, spread to everywhere where there's food and everywhere where there's someone eating food, be it animals or human animals. So it's so vast, the territory to explore, that it's very difficult to find one aspect to deal with as a conflict that would be transversal, across, no? The whole theme. And that's when Ben thought it would be a good idea to engage in a more collective facilitation rather than just focusing on a specific issue, just trying to facilitate this openness where there are so many aspects of food consumption and production that are painful at so many different levels and in so many different ways all throughout the world. Well, that's when Ben suggested that maybe it could be through a constellation. So I wouldn't know how else to frame it. I think we have two very distinct versions of how this problem affects wider and wider and wider and wider different circles. So I don't know if that summarizes for Kalu and Shalini and Ben and Dita, if it's representative of what we spoke, and if it appeals to you.
So I'm just feeling, now I have, can someone name an intention? What's the direction that we're wanting to move in? What's the intention? Dita, saw you flash, yeah.
Perhaps transforming something. I'm not keen, it doesn't have to be resolution, but for me, it feels like it's not only personally stuck, the conflict, but it's like there's a certain stagnation of this conflict that is not moving, and then we just kind of add more layers. So movement would be my intention, transformation.
Okay.
Healing rifts. the healing of our whole relationship to nature and each other, if we're all in it together somehow.
Okay.
I would like to say one intention I'm holding. I couldn't make it to the planning meeting. I'm very interested in this subject. I come from farmer parents, and from one member of my family is a cattle rancher, a huge cattle rancher. So if we're doing the constellation work, I think there needs to be a voice for the people who are engaged in that. And the cattle rancher, if we do the constellation thing, I just want to say, I can speak to that voice if it's necessary, not necessarily holding those views, but loving a family that I love.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, I can feel the tensions in my heart. I'm going to suggest that we begin, sort of in a sort of simple structure. We can start to build out if it seems appropriate from there. And so my first question becomes, well, what's in the field? And the map I want you to offer here for us to begin. And I actually did a little video about a triangle exercise where we look at, well, what's the field that created this field. And so what I want you to imagine is that we've got these 3 points that have been described as activating, restraining, and reconciling. So these, and they can actually be any, we can call them whatever we want. We don't actually even have to name them. But I want you to imagine that we've got these 3 points that are involved in co-creating the field that we're in right now. And so that's, we're going to have representatives for those 3 points. And then I want to know, what are we putting in the field? And so here we have the judgments that are made between conflicting, so judgment, that's a good one. We have cattle ranchers, we have the plants and the animals. We have people who eat food. You can, if you want to type into the chat box or just open up your, just speak into us. What else is in the field for you? I don't know. The neighbor's cattle ate the invasive species. There's soil.
Can you name the 3 points again? It was restraining, activating.
Activating, restraining, and reconciling forces. And I know that Regenesis talks about these as being these 3 forces of manifestation and creation. And I use these a lot as a map in constellations because it's just become so valuable to me. Small family farm. There's some things coming up in the chat, so if you can access that, you can start to see some elements in the field showing up. Agribusiness. Scarcity. Water and poisoned water. The need to make a living. That's right, healthy air. The disconnect from consumers in the food system. Yep. Waste. The loss of traditional ways. The destruction. Hunger. Oh, that's good. Hunger. Hunger. That's great. Hunger. Okay, so I'm gonna, and I'm gonna do this. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna suggest as a way to begin. And then I think we're gonna add in some elements. So first the three points around the activating, the restraining, and the reconciling forces. And then I want to start with 3 elements: hunger, food, and nourishment. So we'll have 6 points in the field to start, and then we'll see what else comes in after that. And so when we enter into the constellation, as we are witnessing, you may notice that you're becoming activated, that maybe you're starting to feel yourself as the stolen land, for example, or as the cattle ranchers who need to make a living. So that may show up as you're witnessing, and so we'll create a space, an opportunity for that to come into the field as well. But we'll begin with these 3 elements, and I haven't yet used the jam. What's that? So the 3 elements that I'm seeing to begin are the 3 forces.
So está bien?
Good. Activating, restraining, and reconciling. So these are the field, this is the field that holds the field. And then the three forces, the three elements we'll place in the field are hunger, food, and nourishment. So take a moment right now and just see if any of those are speaking to you. And give me a little wave if you feel like, oh yes, yes, I think I'm representing or wanting to represent whatever it is.
I see. You might have to unmute too. We can't necessarily see everyone at once. But yes, Kalu.
So I'm really
Hi.
Hi. I'm feeling really strongly about nourishment.
Yeah. Thank you. Can you rename yourself Nourishment? Thank you.
I can be reconciling.
Yes, and rename yourself if you can, or Ben can rename you, I think.
I can be activating.
Okay, is that Michelle speaking?
Yes. Sorry. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Am I? Sorry.
No.
One.
I missed that. Who's activating?
Yes, it's Michelle for activating.
Great. Who's the restraining force? Who's feeling that or can hold that for us?
I can hold hunger, if that's okay.
Okay. Tanya, hunger. Twyla, restraining.
Yes.
A definition. Okay, I can define. One of the ways I'll just quickly sort of talk about a creative inspiration, the clay, and the vessel. So that's the way I like to think of an activating, a restraining. The clay in this case is the restraining, and the vessel is how those two get reconciled. Okay, what else do we have? Food. Yeah, that's the last one, food, Tita. Thank you. So rename yourself if you can, or Ben can help you out with that. And then I'm going to ask the rest of us to turn off our cameras. And if you like, if you really want to get fancy, you can hide non-video participants, so that way you'll see only the representatives. Oh, are we missing someone? Food.
Yeah.
We have food. We have hunger, nourishment. We have everyone. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Excellent. Well, welcome. Thank you so much for coming into the field for us. I'm going to invite you who are representing. I just like to stand up and move, and I'm going to suggest you can really play with this however you like. So you may find that you want to look at the camera, or you may find that you want to go off the screen. So use the screen as part, where the screen and the images, these boxes are part of the larger field. And so I invite you, as you start to tune in, to interact in whatever way seems appropriate. I think I'm going to turn off my camera as well. I'm going to ring the bell just to initiate the field, and I'm going to invite you to drop in and feel your representation, and to thank you for holding this space for us. Okay. I'm going to invite you to, we're going to start to report what you're sensing. And I'm going to begin with activating. So we'll begin with the field that's holding the field. So we'll do activating, then restraining, and then reconciling. So what are you noticing activating?
I feel energy, activating energy.
Mm-hmm. And was that you making a sound? I saw a lot of movement and sound. Is that coming from you?
Yeah, I was flying. To activate energy. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Great. Restraining. You're muted.
The first thing is I got the song from Hamilton that the King sings, da 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 da. Sort of like a campy way, a campy kind of carefree way of appearing while actually being a bit of a tyrant. So it's a feeling of wanting to appear one way while being something else. And then I went in the kitchen and noticed that my refrigerator was flooding. So realizing I was drinking water at the beginning, and then there's like water coming from an unexpected source, like a nourishment, but also now coming from an unexpected source and not welcome.
Thank you. And what's happening for the reconciling force right now?
I started out walking in a circle, and then I felt exhausted and like I needed support. And so you probably couldn't see me because the screen was above me, but I sat down on the ground and sort of tucked myself in like this. And the feelings that were coming up were compassion, sadness, and yearning.
Thank you. let's hear from hunger.
It's hard to stay standing, to remain standing, I guess. I've aches in my feet and my knees. And there's just a general numbness with a sense of compression around the chest.
Thank you. And food?
I feel a tingling almost everywhere. And I've been feeling like I'm being pulled apart. Confusion, anger. I feel insulted, mistreated, and I feel a deep, deep sadness as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Nourishment?
So I felt immediately the need to go and grab my musical instruments, which is my drum and my bell, which represent my two greatest traditions, spiritual traditions. I'm feeling like deep sadness, like there's something in my heart that it's kind of like oppressing. And I don't know why I keep having these images of, like Mama Africa and the songs, and kind of like trying to hold space. Like this deep connection to Mother Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm feeling like this great need of just being sitting here and just staying quiet and still.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So I'm going to invite the witnesses just to notice, as you've been holding space here, if there's anything that you're noticing moving, and if you're at all feeling called either to share something or to come into the field. And I'm going to invite the representatives to stay in the field. I'm going to ask, I'm going to ask you to notice, the representatives, if there's something, because I notice that people are not really looking at each other. That's interesting. Maybe activating might be looking in, but most of the other representatives are not. And so just notice that. You don't have to change it, but notice, and maybe even you can ask the question, what are you either not looking at, or what are you looking at?
Should we answer if we know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So as I was saying, I keep walking in circles, and then I sit down when I get tired, and I feel like I'm walking in circles because I feel like I have to like watch the terrain and like protect it and keep it safe. And I think maybe I'm not looking anywhere else because the burden feels so heavy with what I'm dealing with that I have no space to also look at the other. There's too much to do already. That's what it feels like.
Okay. Can someone who's witnessing see if you're holding earth? Yeah, let's start with earth. We need to bring earth into the field. And that might show up also as, it might show up as soil, so, but however that shows up. Earth, water, I can feel water. Okay, so let's bring water in, yep. Thank you. Okay, there's 4 elements. So let's bring in the elements. Earth, water, fire, air. Let's see if you're coming in. Good. Dunya, are you coming in as water? Thank you.
So as soon as you started naming and welcoming the elements, I felt that this weight lifted off my shoulders.
There comes the earth. Thank you so much. Sun, here comes sun. And Anne. Anne, do you know what you're representing, or can you? You're muted.
No, I wasn't. I
go.
just moved my hand. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine. Oh, it's interesting that you're here. Okay. I'm kind of curious what you're representing, that you've shown up here. I want to call in fire.
Labor.
And I want to
work. She's the hand. She moved her hand.
Work. Thank you. Calling in work. Calling in labor. So we need fire, and we're calling in air. Let's see if that's you. You can have multiple of these, so you don't have to worry about waiting for somebody else. If you're feeling called to come in, I invite you in and hold space. Thank you. I thank you for holding space with us. I think we need the ancestor of hunger. We may need multiple ancestors of hunger. So if you are feeling the ancestors who stand behind hunger, I'm going to invite you to come in.
I can't stop crying.
Thank you, Earth. We see you.
The more and more elements and ancestors and people coming in, I've like gone from, my speed has gone up going around the circle, and my burden's getting heavier, and I'm gone from like exhaustion to like panic or like anxiety. Like,
okay.
and I remember the first thing that I thought, like when water came in, was like, there's not enough water. There's also not enough water. So it's like this, not enough.
Thank you.
When I first came in, I felt that like compression and the not enough. And then tinglings everywhere, and then just moving and needing to move and to break, and also the tears, this really needing to release and to be cultivated like a spiral.
I couldn't look at people before because I felt scared, unsafe, ashamed. No, not ashamed, really just scared, isolated. But hearing the voices and knowing that there was soil coming and water made me want to look. And I feel a lot of tension right now. My shoulders are really about to explode, it feels. But I feel brave and I want to look.
Mm. Mm. Thank you. Activating, then restraining, yes.
Yeah, I was activating energy to bring us into a relational connection with food. And as food, the food that we eat and how food is cultivated is directly connected to our bodies and our health, our energy, and the planetary health. But my energy is feeling low as conversations. It's, yeah, I'm kind of, yeah, feeling a bit, yeah, kind of down.
Yeah.
It's changing the space is changing my energy.
Mm. Yeah. Hunger, emergency feeding. Oh, I'm sorry, restraining and then hunger. Thank you.
Okay, as restraining force, I'm extremely interested in this little tapestry picture. And I wanted to go lie down on the couch under it, basically. And it looks like some sort of a Venetian market scene. And I got a sense of just ease and relaxation and the water as a channel for distribution. And I'm noticing that the people in the picture have apparent wealth. So it feels, you know, for lack of a better word, kind of extractive. Like I want to just lie here on the couch and, you know, and look at the people in their beautiful clothes and think about the channels of distribution of food. And I feel like that's generating wealth. And I am completely disconnected from everybody else. I could care less who has what to say about anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to take a nap. Because I can.
Mm-hmm. Emergency feeding. How are you?
I'm having some powerful memories of an emergency feeding program, a prenatal emergency feeding program from my days as a social worker and distributing government surplus. From a welfare agency, and the poor quality of the food that horrified me. And it was food that kept people alive. And so mice came and infested the 50-pound bags of rice.
Mm.
And I had to call the management of the hospital, and we were on the 5th floor distributing this food out of a little room. And so they put down glue boards to stop the mice from eating the food that was going to women. So when I came in every morning, they were suffering with their faces stuck to these glue boards. And the first thing I did before I ever took off my coat was drown them in a big pan of water to end their suffering. I haven't thought about that in years. And I had no problem doing it.
Hunger, Tanya, can we hear from you?
Um,
I want to stand behind Hunger and bring her food.
yes, I am not only human hunger, but soil starvation. And how it's like trees were crying.
We can hear you, Alison.
Tanya, can you come closer as representing hunger? We can't hear you very well. Yeah. Thank you.
I guess it's a wider hunger than just human hunger. It's like animals hungry and trees. It's everything inside of me, underneath my feet, feels hungry.
Thank you. Reconciling, is there something happening for you?
Yeah, I'm just having a bit of trouble breathing. And I'm just like looking at Earth and emergency food and emergency foods memories brought up my memories of working in a lab doing experiments on mice, and then taking those mice and putting them in plastic bins, sticking a hose through the hole with CO2 and terminating them like a gas chamber, like Holocaust victims, but they were mice in a plastic bin. And then watching them running around and then slow down. And I can't hold it anymore.
I'm going to invite all of you representatives, because you're holding this for all of us. And I'm going to invite you to, if you need to take a little bit of space between you and your representation. And start to connect with your own nervous system and your capacity to ground yourself. even as we witness and hold these wounds.
Alison, may I sing a song?
Yes, yes.
I'm gonna kind of like, this is a song to the 4 elements. So in the chat I'm putting the translation because it's in Spanish. So it's called 4 elements.
Before I leave, Kalu, wait just a moment. Before I leave this, before I go back to being not food, it's burning. I need to say that I just want to be a huge bird that can wrap my wings around all of you, and yeah, make that suffering move and become soil.
Thank you. And I want to call in from one of the witnesses. We need air. The air isn't represented here yet, and we really need air. So I'm going to ask someone to hold that space for us, to turn on your video and come in. We need air.
Tierra mi cuerpo, agua mi sangre, aire mi aliento, fuego mi espíritu. Tierra mi cuerpo, agua mi sangre, aire mi aliento, fuego mi espíritu. Tierra mi cuerpo, agua mi sangre, aire mi aliento, fuego mi espíritu. Tierra mi cuerpo, agua mi sangre, aire mi aliento, fuego mi espíritu.
Restraining.
I will say that while everybody was doing their reports, I was in no way connected until I heard the 2 stories about the disposing of the mice for experimentation, and also for that were getting into the food supply for the emergency hunger. And I had a lot of interest in that, hearing that. And it had a little contrast with my own experience of moving into this house when we had mice, or there were mice in here that were getting into my food. And so I set little traps, little 1-at-a-time traps, and then threw them up on my garage roof, and got a lot of actual enjoyment out of seeing the raptors come, the like hawks and such, and take the mice as nourishment from the roof. And I just thought that was really cool. And 1 hour before this constellation, I was sitting in front of my window looking at my bird feeder, and a falcon came down and snatched a chipmunk. and proceeded to eat it in my yard in front of me. And I was like excited about that. Like, oh my God, this is like nature, like right up close. I was very interested in, you know, like the water for the channels of distribution and for like what I wanted to use it for, not other things. And the plant behind you, I'm interested in, and I was interested in the plant that and the tree ferny thing behind hunger. But I've like really had a reaction of noticing the difference between like the way that the stories made people feel about the mice. There's something there about obviously the mice or the rodents and the food and the different way one might feel about their death. Like for some it was a kindness, but it was still kind of a horrifying story. And then in others, I was like actively trying to get rid of the mice, and I was excited and was talking about what a pain in the neck the chipmunks were digging around in the garden. So there's like a certain excitement about nature taking care of the unwanted vermin, I guess, as the restraining force. And I'm aware how that sounds and makes me feel. Like I want to look like I'm doing a good thing, but I realize it makes me look kind of callous.
Thank you. Earth.
I can hardly speak. As all of this was happening, my phone was ringing, and it was the farmer friend of mine who's my song sister, who gives me food and who provided starts for my garden. She called while we were, she just now called while we were all in this. And thanks to her, I want to offer as earth to hunger, the friendship that has to do with farmers and their food and giving it freely to the people they love, to their families and to the communities.
Thank you. We have some air.
When you called for air, I couldn't breathe. I was choking, and it was all smoke. So here I am choking with no mouth. No mouth. Can't breathe.
Thank you.
Huge pressure in my lungs, massive, massive pressure in my lungs. Body.
Reconciling? Is this something for you to share?
I felt better after I had some water and we called in air. And I heard nourishment. They heard drum, and that brought me to the earth somehow, that deep sound of the drum, and somehow that calmed me down. Like I needed those elements. I don't have enough of them. Now I don't know why, but the one that I did not need was fire. Like maybe there's too much fire. And then air said that there was too much smoke. And so I don't know what it means, but I get the feeling that there's too much fire and we need more air and water and earth for this problem, at least for reconciliation.
Thank you.
I
Fire
very much
energy. We'll hear from fire energy and then restraining, okay? Fire energy, do you have anything to report?
There is a feeling of overwhelm.
Feeling
of
overwhelm.
A lump in my throat. And I'm feeling a sense of, at one level, radiation of energy. I'm also feeling like they're very mixed feelings. In the form of energy to be equally available to all factors that are here represented for their optimal functioning, and also a need to restrain for the kind of, in the form of fire, the destruction it can cause.
Nourishment and restraining and then nourishment.
I had a very strong reaction to hearing there's too much fire. When air came in, I was coughing and choking, and then as soon as I heard there's too much fire, we need less fire, I felt extremely defensive about that and protective of the fire, like I need the fire. We need the fire. And I'm aware that fire is one way of purifying water, you know, from a science perspective.
Nourishment.
For me also, when air jumped in, I felt like a little bit of less weight, as if something was completed. And when I heard about being too much fire, what came to me is more than we've forgotten the sacredness of fire, as if its force is so misunderstood. Fire is such a strong force, and it's so misunderstood. As much as anger I can see, the gift that it has behind it is so great, but it can be so misused. So I'm feeling this urge to go back to the sacredness of fire.
Thank you. Air.
So when fire spoke, I felt relief in my breathing, and my breathing changed from holding, I couldn't breathe, I was actually holding my breath and then gasping. But when fire was speaking, I could feel it change, so I was breathing deep and then blowing very, very softly and gently, like you would the coals on a fire, just to hold it at a very low, slow, quiet warmness.
Thank you.
Sacredness feels good. Sacredness is the word.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Water?
I'm feeling nauseous, like too many memories. At times I'm everywhere, I'm drowning everything and flooding everything. At times I'm gone and like constricted and then the memories of the spiraling and the minerals and the dance. But then whenever I hear a restraining voice, then I see the pipes and all of that joy, it goes. And I feel the toxicity and it's like schizophrenic. There's so many memories, but I hold all of the memories, and that's what I hold on to, is that it's all happening.
I also had a reaction when I heard that we don't want fire. And the reaction was in the form of how do things move without energy? If you don't want energy, then how do you move anything? And the weight of that was the moment when I felt a need as a fire to restrain, and the weight of that restraining, which then does not allow full expression and full distribution of energy for me.
I'm feeling, as people are speaking, that there are some conflicts. So I'm wanting to acknowledge some of these conflicts. And one that's showing up just in this moment is those who in their bodies, they feel the trauma, and this maybe are some of us who've lived this and some of us whose ancestors have lived it, but the feeling of the trauma when they felt that the elements were not their friends, that actually they suffered with the fire because of the air, because of the earth, that they couldn't
cutting down a little bit.
What's that?
You're cutting down a little bit, so it can't. It's not.
Oh, sorry. Is that any better?
30 seconds. Yeah, your last few sentences were difficult too.
It's better.
Okay. Thank you. And I know that we're on the edge of time, and so I just want to name these pieces, that there are these tensions arising between those of us who come and say we're standing for something new, and those of us who are remembering through our trauma something old, so the traumas that come from even just relating to these sacred elements. Just acknowledging that there's these tensions showing up. Thank you, Ben. Yes, hunger, emergency. Mm-hmm.
It's funny, when the humans came close, work, labor, I have very strong physical reactions. When someone said work and labor, and that just kind of reopened my chest from being a totally compressed state. And someone said something about wealth and money and richness, and that just made me want to throw up and just roll back down again. And then someone said food, hunger, food, feed the hungry, food for the hungry, or something. And that's when there was a certain sense of relief, but at the same time there was a feeling of indignation. And I guess that's when my brain registered that the hunger that I was representing wasn't only human hunger. I get, but it wasn't until the food or the that other representation came in, and also I felt the sense of, while understanding hunger as a human phenomena, the need to panhandle, well, just waiting for someone to bring something rather than feeling until someone said word and they were. And that's it. Thank you. You're muted?
Oh, sorry. Thank you. So just pointing people to the chat, there's also this other movement. The humans Claire named that she's been feeling human, but afraid to step in, and Fires naming that there's a confusion coming from how humans have used them, that there may be confusion. And I don't know if, for me, I actually feel like there are humans who do feel that they have been because of trauma. There are ancestors who do feel that they were betrayed by the elements, that they suffered. So I am going to just sort of as process-wise and as time-wise, I want to bring everyone back in and give some folks a time to sort of process together what's come up as they've been either representing or witnessing. And I'm going to suggest that we do that in small groups so we can have a little bit of time, a little bit more intimate time to sort of just share a bit about what's happened. Now, I need to check for time because I don't know what your time is and if you're in a rush to get off. So if you can give us what I think Ben suggested, 30 minutes past. And if you can't give us 30 minutes, let us know and we can send you off. Thank you. But if you can give us 30 minutes, I'm going to invite us. Okay, so here's some 10 minutes. Great. So even 10 minutes, I think, is going to be good. Ben, can you help us to break up into small groups? And I'm going to ask you who've been representing you're going to keep the memory of this, but I'm going to invite us to close. So I'm going to ring the bell and invite us to close this field for now, keeping all that we learned from it. And those who have been witnessing also help us to release this field and to send some gratitude to the representatives for holding space for us. Thank you all. And as you release, you can rename yourself. You can stand up and give yourself a little shake to sort of sweep off what you've been holding. Although it's not uncommon that what you've been holding is also connected to your personal and ancestral field in some way. So if it has awakened something, and you can acknowledge it and greet it, give it a place in your heart. Yes, there are a lot of elements that we did not put in the field, and I invite you to talk about that as it comes up. So Ben, can we go into groups of 3-ish? And I'm going to suggest 12 minutes, so very short time, just a couple of minutes each to share what showed up for you as you were holding space or witnessing.
Yeah, we have groups of 3 and 1 group of 4, random more or less. So
Thank you.
you'll get a 1-minute warning after 9 minutes. So use the final minute, and we'll see you back here in 10.
Perfect.
I don't know how that happens.
Welcome back, everyone.
Yes, welcome back, welcome back. So I'm going to invite, I'd love, again, really honoring your time. If you have some medicine that showed up for you, I'm going to invite you to put it in the chat, some insights, some medicine, and also I'd love to hear from a few people before we close the call. So as many people as can, if you want to access the chat, we welcome that. I'm going to say something. And anybody who wants to unmute and share.
I'm just going to share for 1 minute, just because I have to go soon. So, to be honest, I feel that the space was a bit of this collective space was a missed opportunity to engage differently about our relationship with food and the earth and the moment that we're in. Because for me, the space was quite human-centric about how us humans relate. And, we're dealing with the moment of the Anthropocene, and in a way we have to lose our anthropocentric thinking and think with the Earth's intelligence. And I'm feeling a little bit energy drained from the space in a way that we weren't able to shift the conversation and the terms of the conversation in relation to the crisis that we're in the COVID, but also the opportunity that we're in as we're given a moment to rethink our relationship with food and how do we think about food in terms of relations, broader than us, and to think with the earth systems and cycles.
I'd like to speak to that as the earth. I was feeling all those things, Michelle, but I couldn't speak.
Mm. Mm.
Mm. I think I guess, Michelle, I hear you. I approached this, differently perhaps because it was a discussion that we also had in the group, and it was kind of an aware decision. And in speaking with Marta just right now in the breakup rooms, she had the exact same feeling. And I don't know if it's a matter of just really seeing it as such a huge problem and such a vast dimension to it, so multi-layered that I would see this as a starting step. I mean, I'm not trying to convince you of anything nor justify the approach, just inviting you to maybe continue this conversation, because it's obvious that, and by obvious I mean it's evident that it's just beginning. It's just como the prickling down in a way. No, it's like we need to start filtering in order to get to the core. And I'm not sure we're yet, all of us, at the same como concern level or issues of concern that we can actually just engage in a conversation that would lead to I see this as a filter, as a starting point to then move to other things. And I would strongly encourage you and us and myself to deepen this. I feel the way I feel the exact same way you do, maybe in different words, but it's a very similar feeling. So yes, please, if you would like to, it would be fantastic, you know, to see what we can, I always forget the word for it, the harvest from this, and on from this harvest, move on to a new seeding, and so on, if you would like to. All of you, all of us, of course.
I like this concept of harvesting from what we've done and to think about where we might go next. And some of the things that are going through my mind are the very idea of food first, food basic. Can we share? I bet all of us know some really simple solution ways of going about this. For instance, I was speaker at the Boom Festival in Portugal, which brings together some 40,000 people, but they start in advance growing a permaculture gardens on the ground. And the composting toilets are used to feed those gardens. And they show that you can grow your own food in 6 weeks. And then we see all these refugee camps all around the world where the people are huddled in tents and some waiting for a bag of mouse-infested rice to be given, instead of having them growing their own food now, right away, quickly. It can be done. And those people from the big music and arts festivals can teach them how to do it. So things of that kind, the very simple solutions that are needed now. One of my heroes is John Macmillan, known as the man with a digging stick, now deceased, sadly, but I hope working from the other side, who went to Ethiopia and taught people how to grow little fish ponds with veggies around them, where the fish fed the veggies and the veggies the fish. And he turned that place into a garden of 10 million trees and health clinics and schools and stuff over time. It started with nothing. And he used to say, put me anywhere on earth where there are people still standing. I don't care how big a desert it is. I can help them green it and feed themselves. So let's talk solutions. Simple stuff. It is a big complex field, but get out some information, that might shift things a little.
I just want to note for myself in the constellation, one of the things I named at the end was that I could feel these dualities. The conflict started to come in. And so I'm just appreciating here that part of what's happening is we're starting now to get to the point where the conflicts show up. And I think that's appropriate for the movement that we were in. There's even a part of me, I noticed this show up, Elizabeth, as I heard you speak about, solutions and moving into solutions. And here's another conflict, which is the part of me that feels a kind of resistance to move into solutions when we have there's like this world of something. I don't even know what the something is. If it's grieving, if it's acknowledging, if there's taking a place in my heart, there's these multiple movements that I can acknowledge that are happening as we are orienting towards a creative future. There are these things that keep holding us back. And so part of me wonders, and part of it may be that we operate at different places in the big field. Some of us are creating the new and some of us are, hospicing the old. And so maybe that's what I'm naming as, the part of me that's hospicing the old is recognizing there's a lot of stuff back here that's unacknowledged, and feeling that, recognizing that as part of service of the shift.
In our group with Anne and Junita, Anne brought up the missing voice of the petrochemical industry and those who are who basically are enforcing this system of scarcity and fragility, and how they're missing in this space just on a broad level, and how that's a big problem because how we're gonna address the conflict if the the perpetrator is not present.
We can't. We can't. We can only turn on lights in the darkness. The butterfly doesn't fight the caterpillar. Yes, passive resistance and things like that are absolutely on the agenda, but I deeply got emotional during this process today. I understand, how deep these feelings are, but I keep being reminded of a poem someone wrote me with the line, "Somewhere the tears and the agony are stored into the chest of thunder." He was telling me energy is energy, and you can transmute that pain into something like helping a refugee grow food. And then there's an outlet for the emotion in action.
Beautiful.
Speaking to that, I do agree in the moving from that emotion of pain, but it feels as important as well to be able to sit with it for a while and be willing to stand in that discomfort before we move on to solutions. Because otherwise, the solution or moving out, like trying to transmute it, becomes as another means to escape from the deeper, like the deeper underlying layer of it. So, and that's my experience throughout this constellation. I could feel like this very dense, very, very dense energy that it's underneath everything that goes beyond. So to me, it felt really important, like to be able to sit with it for a while, and the discomfort and the pain before jumping into solutions, because that speaks to me that there's this resistance to really seeing the issue, the real issue.
Yeah, I think right now what I'm feeling is that even this confusion, this this need to have other factors or internal conflict within the representatives is an important part of the whole landscape to understand and relate to what is happening. And solutions and who else should be there or not be there is perhaps a conversation for another time. But to sit with those conflicts that arose in the witnesses or in the representatives is a very important information, is what I'm feeling right now.
Quickly, what I'm feeling is also that, oh, are we leaving? Oh, I'm not sure. I see hands, and I also sense what Kalu is saying about the mourning and feeling the depth of the pain, and then being proactive and engaging with the solution are not it's a non-linear process, and they're not sequential. It's a weaving, and part of understanding the depth is engaging with what does solutions look like. So that's what's coming up for me as well.
I think I'm seeing again what I was saying a couple of hours ago in another session, that yeah, it's maybe no time is time for following just one strategy. So I think I like what Alison was referring to before, that there would be kind of some people more concentrated perhaps in one type of work, and some people more concentrated perhaps in another type of work. And again, I think right now I am for all strategies, and everybody doing what feels most comfortable or most challenging, or what we are good at. And that might be many things. So
sure. I wonder if there is if we could come up with some sort of, for those of us who are far more como, in order to share this work with other producers and with the people we work with here in Mexico, and even with Marta, who was a bit, como unrested by the process herself, just so we can como harvest the. I'm not very familiar with this process, so how do you harvest from this and take on to share what you found, and maybe if we can find a way to do that, we can como continue the process even if it's not in the following days of the summit, but a little bit further down the road, so we can.
Yeah, I'll say just a couple of words. So I invite and harvest it just as you would any other, any other session. And I'll just give some, one of my colleagues said recently, and I really appreciated this because he put words to something I witnessed and didn't have words for, which is he said, when we do a collective process like we did today, that process doesn't resolve, it reveals. And so what we take from it is really what was revealed to us. And of course, the revealing happens at multiple levels. I mean, there are ways in which things happen in the field that we might not perceive, and they're also available to us to be revealed. And maybe we'll figure that out weeks down the line when we recognize, oh, I remember that interaction now in a different way. So, but I encourage you to take what was revealed to you, and we'll harvest it in the ways that you all, and maybe Ben, you can point us to specific ways that you want us to do that. And then you can take it from there. And so the other thing I'll say is that the way we get to resolution and constellation is through personal process. So when we work with you, Tanya, and your community, or any of us, when we work through you, there can be resolution. But when we work in just the collective, what we see is things are revealed. And so another step in this process would be to take all the fruits of what showed up here, these dynamics that are available in the collective, and then drop it down. How do these things show up then for you individually? And how are they going to help each individual disentangle themselves from this food system? That really becomes the key. That's really the sort of, where's a leverage point, it comes in this witnessing of the intersection between the systemic and the individual.
Okay. Thank you. We appreciate you taking the time.
I guess I could speak a little bit to the harvest. We didn't organize any process in advance, but I just put into the chat the link to the listing for this event in our online community space. So putting comments in there is certainly one simple place where we can collect things. We could get fancier if there was energy, but I'm not sure. I think what I'm hearing from you, Alison, is also what I'm sensing is that the way that this is not a process where we're leaving with a list of things to do, or we're now planning our next steps as a group. Which isn't to say that there might not be some very specific action that's somehow being seeded here. Certainly Tanya and I have been talking about some collaborations between the Regenerative Communities Collaborative based in Mexico City, where she is, and the one based in central Massachusetts in the Connecticut River Valley, where actually you are, Alison, and I'm just south of there. There may be other things. There may be lots of things like this within this summit, of clusters of people that are coming together in different ways and wanting to do things together or learn more together or practice more. And all of that, is possible for us to work on. And it's not like we decided in advance, these are going to be these outcomes, and then we're going to try to drive them through this process. So I think what underneath that also for me is this sense that I was here, and hopefully all of us in the larger field we represent was here to receive nourishment at a core level that can support all of our work, that we're nurturing the soil, that metaphor we've used in this summit. And with that, I'm being called to something.
I invite us all to just sort of make contact with each other through the screen. Make a little circle of contact. Yes, and butterflies and birds. Thank you all so much for witnessing and holding space, and I send blessings for however this plants a seed.
Thank you, Alison.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alison.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you very, very
everybody.
much.
Thank you, everybody.